Did you know they plan to build over 3,000 wind turbines on Queensland's Great Dividing Range? Over 3,700 kilometres of new haulage roads will carve through old growth forest. Destroying forests for industrial renewables makes no sense. It doesn't have to be this way. The intact biodiverse ranges of Queensland are no place for renewables. Take 2 minutes to learn the truth about the destruction they cause. Go to rainforestreserves.org.au.
For the World Today, this is James O'Neill. Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is reportedly relocated to a fortified underground bunker in Tehran amid fears of a possible U.S. military strike, according to Iran International. Sources said the hardened complex includes interconnected tunnels designed to ensure leadership continuity. Khamenei's son Massoud has allegedly taken over day-to-day operations of the Supreme Leader's office, consolidating power within the family. The move comes amid escalating tensions with Washington, weeks of unrest inside Iran, and harsh crackdowns on protesters. President Donald Trump has called for new leadership in Iran and warned of major U.S. military deployments toward the region. Russia, Ukraine, and the United States have confirmed plans to resume trilateral peace talks following 2 days of discussions in Abu Dhabi. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said further talks are expected next week, echoing comments from U.S. negotiator Steve Witkoff, who described the talks as constructive. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said negotiations could resume soon if all sides agree. While progress was reported, core disagreements remain unresolved, particularly over territorial issues. Ukraine continues to reject territorial concessions demanded by Russia, while Moscow claims Kyiv's stance is delaying peace even as talks continue. President Trump announced he is sending border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota following ongoing immigration enforcement operations, protests, and recent shootings involving federal agents. Homan will manage ICE operations targeting illegal immigrants and coordinate investigations into alleged large-scale welfare fraud. The administration says the operation in Minneapolis is its most ambitious to date and has sparked weeks of protests. One Border Patrol agent shot a man in self-defense, and another immigration operation earlier in January resulted in the death of a U.S. citizen. Democratic lawmakers have threatened to block DHS funding over the incidents, while Trump has defended the operation as necessary for public safety. The European Commission has launched a formal investigation into Elon Musk's social media platform X over allegations that its Grok AI generated sexualized deepfake images of women and children. The probe will assess whether X violated the EU's Digital Services Act, potentially exposing the company to fines of up to 6% of global revenue. Regulators are examining whether safeguards against illegal content are sufficient. The investigation follows similar action by UK regulator Ofcom and expands an earlier EU probe into X's recommendation algorithms. US officials have criticized the EU's actions as targeting American technology companies. British police arrested 86 protesters on suspicion of aggravated trespass after they allegedly breached prison grounds at Wormwood Scrubs in London while protesting in support of a Palestine Action prisoner on hunger strike. Metropolitan Police said the group refused to leave when ordered, blocked staff access, threatened officers, and some entered the staff area. The Ministry of Justice said security was not compromised, but called the incident deeply concerning. Palestine Action was proscribed as a terrorist organization in July, making support for it a criminal offense. The Home Office said the ban followed aggressive attacks linked to the group, including significant damage to defense-related facilities. Reform UK MP Robert Jenrick criticized Kemi Badenoch for insulting Suella Braverman.
They're very angry that Conservatives are choosing to leave and go to Reform, and they're not engaging with the issues. The same happened to me where the world and his wife piled in, attacking me, throwing insults left, right and centre, but not confronting the actual argument that I was making when I said Britain is broken and the Conservative Party helped to break it. They won't win that argument, they know they won't, and so they're just going for personal insults. It's sad, but that's the way it is. People who really want to fix this country have got to rally behind Reform.
This has been James O'Neill for The World Today.
Just tell me if it's in focus or... Is this okay?
This experience has really opened my eyes. When I went to work that morning, I never would have thought that I would end up in a homeless shelter and all of this because of it. the blink of an eye and your life is changed forever. When you come in here for the first time, it really is horrible and daunting. You suddenly think, is this what my life has become? There's no soul, there's absolutely nothing here. And imagine coming in here and you've got a child to bring in as well. Imagine trying to make it a home for them, because they've got to share it as well. And this is an imprint for their future. So you can see what this place is like. We wander across in my room. As you can see, there's very little space. His bed to make him comfortable, pictures on the walls. That's my own cupboard I have to bring in. Well, it's Friday night, it's almost 11 o'clock. There's been a major row or something like that occurring in the other end of the block. I've got nowhere to go to, so I'm here with my son. This weekend there was a little bit of aggravation, a lot of shouting and things like that, right? How did that make you feel?
Bit annoyed.
Why did it make you annoyed?
Because of shouting, bad words and stuff.
I really need to get out of this place.
There is a problem with medicine, and we can explain what it is by looking back to the discovery of penicillin. Penicillin, it turns out, was not just an accidental finding. Alexander Fleming discovered that mold he found in a culture dish was killing bacteria, but it took over 10 years before a team at Oxford University were able to isolate the active ingredient. They produced small quantities for preclinical and clinical trials, helping prove the compound was safe and could beat infection. However, they couldn't produce it at scale. In 1941, Andrew Jackson Moyer of the US Department of Agriculture, the forerunner to the FDA, suggested changes to the manufacturing process, enabling mass production. It turns out medicines are not invented when someone discovers a new molecular entity. They are the product of key stakeholders working together collaboratively. Until medicine can be manufactured at scale, it may as well not exist. And in 2025, this is a problem. In the 1980s, pharmaceutical companies began outsourcing production. Suddenly the system was significantly less integrated. Someone with a new discovery today will find themselves disconnected from the rest of the development and manufacturing process. Companies that develop medicine are still happy to work with big established pharma companies, but the modern day Flemings are cut out of the system. The result is far fewer new medicines coming to market. We want to fix this by ensuring the pharma industry builds a more integrated supply chain. We also believe that doctors' expertise administering medicine should be included at the beginning of the process. We know that doctors on the front line have insights about how to repurpose medicine. Doctors should be able to report their findings so that the necessary testing can be completed and they can share the results worldwide. Learn more here and help us take medicines back to the future.
With your help, we can continue to fight for freedom, reach new audiences, and bring important information to the public free of charge. This is not possible without your generosity. Join our quest for the truth and our freedom and donate today, telling it as it is. This is today's News Talk, The World Today.
And welcome back to our number 3, The World Today. And thank you to our guest on The Protagonist, one of my favourite shows of all time. It's funny how the media is changing, isn't it? How independent media is certainly making inroads compared to legacy media. The difference, I think, between legacy media, one of the differences, many differences, but one of the differences is that legacy media, their success is based on the number of listeners or viewers or readers, whereas in the independent or alt media sphere, there seems to be a conga line of assassins wanting to not beat the other person or do better than the other person, but to destroy them. Robert Cibis is a producer, director and author of films, documentaries and TV shows, as well as a book publisher and editor-in-chief of Oval Media. Robert made it his mission to convey a new perspective on power mechanics. His goal is to foster active citizenship by providing a deeper understanding of the world through a variety of media. Robert's a keen observer of global media and how mainstream media and alt media, or independent media, plays a role in narrative management and dissemination of propaganda and factual information during times of crisis. We talked to Robert today about his observations of the changing media landscape over recent years and the lack of transparency we see especially in independent or alternative media. Robert, thanks for joining us.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
How is the media, let's forget legacy. Everyone talks about mainstream media, but let's talk about independent or alt media. How has it changed over the last couple of years?
Oh, that's a very good question. I mean, it's really funny because I feel like I didn't change that much myself, but the media landscape changed completely. Just for my story, I think it's important to see that I've been just a TV producer and a producer of creative documentaries, also for theatrical release, and I financed my films with public broadcasters and public funding till 2020. The mistake I made was that we did a feature-length documentary about the World Health Organization, which has been released in 2018, so 2 years before the so-called COVID crisis. And this put me in a position in 2020 of being an expert, and that has been the real problem, because if you just look at the facts, if you try to judge based on the research we did for years, analyzing the World Health Organization, we have been considered, let's say, an outsider of the media circus. And from that outsider perspective, I discovered that there was a vacuum which became bigger and bigger and bigger, till, in fact, I understood that there were a lot of things to do, and in fact that the alt is in fact the wrong word. The legacy media, are vanishing. They are disappearing from what they did before. In fact, the film about the World Health Organization we produced has been done with the legacy media. If I would do the same film today, if I would have shown excerpts of the film today in social media, they would have been deleted. So I felt like being by coincidence in that position of being a rebel. And a lot of people liked that in 2020. And this is why we got a lot of support. At the same time, we lost a lot of our old, working relationships. In fact, we couldn't work with the broadcasters anymore. We couldn't work with public funds anymore because they were obviously not supporting any criticism of the dominating narrative. So this is why I then could see and live the changing of the media landscape.
How important is alt or independent media in Germany?
Oh, that's a good question. It's getting more and more important. A lot of people just don't trust the media anymore.
We seem to have lost your audio for a second, Robert. I think we have the gremlins in somewhere between us and Germany. If you can give Mers a quick call to tell him to stop it.
Okay. Oh,
There we
is
are.
it better now? Sorry.
Much better now. Yes, keep going. Thank you.
Yeah, I just yes. So in fact, the media in Germany, the alternative media, is getting more and more important, and the trust in legacy media is vanishing. I mean, it's not really surprising because all legacy media are simply reporting the same stories. It's really absurd to see how the left wing and the right wing media are, when it's about lying about the big stories to the public, then they say just the same. It is incredible. It is, of course, the same as everywhere, as people don't pay for the content anymore. Third parties take over and obviously control all media. So this is why more and more people would listen to shows we produce at Oval Media, and we had at the time we've been on YouTube, we had a lot of views, more than what I produced in former times for public broadcasters. So it was really shocking to see how much I lost, and it has been shocking to see how much I won. Both has been clearly an indicator of a big disruption. So. And I got individual support also from some people who just came to me and said, "Look, I want to help you in what you're doing. I have a lot of money. I can give you a lot." And this also had never happened to me in my life. As a documentary filmmaker, normally people just know you will lose what you have because you need public funding, because it will never be sustainable economically speaking. And there was one guy who said, "Look, what do you need? What do you want?" And I thought he's wasting my time. I think he's playing games with me, but I can still see. And I said, "Look, I want to make documentaries, and it's true that with donations it's difficult to finance, at least if you want to work on the same level as I did before when I worked with public broadcasters. But ideally, I would like to have produce a whole series about the COVID crisis." And he said, "Oh, what would it cost?" And I said, "Look, if I did it for the public broadcast I used to work with, a minor one, that would give, let's say, 100,000 euros for an episode of 1 hour. And if it's 5 hours, I would need 500,000 euros if it would be on the same level. If I would pay people the same and if I would work with the same people." And he said, "Look, I'll give you 600." So I had these kind of encounters which were very surreal, which I couldn't really grasp. And I said, "Look, everything is disrupted in 2020. Everything has been different to normal. So why not? Maybe this is how now the world works, and I can fill in a space which has to be filled in."
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? Because the private funders of independent media, and people were saying, maybe thinking, well, we're just talking about, all these creators, or some call themselves journalists, and they're not journalists. They've worked out how to edit and how to lift video from someone else and have a comment, but they're not journalists. They're communicators, and I've got nothing against that. Or they're creators, but they are not. Not all of them are journalists. But the problem with a funder, Robert, as you've attested to, is that once they get hold of you, because we all need to eat and have a roof over our head, it's very hard, isn't it, then to shake that fungus off you.
Yes, I mean, I thought that way too. Even at the time, I thought I should be cautious. So I said I would not take any risk. We make a contract in which responsibilities are clear, so no editorial say to the funder. Also, the revenue share concerned just the film project, so it wouldn't be essential. If the film isn't going right or so, I could still, continue to work. It wouldn't hinder anything. It would just create something I wouldn't have otherwise. This is how I thought at the time. But I was wrong. I was completely wrong, and I'll tell you why. But to continue that story, this guy made me then dream, because I experienced always, my whole life, the complete opposite to this. I always met people who said, look, I want to support you, but I don't have that much money. I can do what I can do, but not more, and you have to go along with this or that. And I'm used to have very difficult situation, financially speaking, and I never heard somebody say, look, if you need more money, just ask me. This didn't exist in the documentary filmmakers world. So of course, then spending time with this guy, he made me dream. Let's say, look, we could build a new television network. We could build, we could do not just a series of documentaries, but even more. It's true, if you have funding, you can do a lot. You cannot do everything, but nearly everything if you have a lot of money. It's really impressive to think about. These are the things. The fun fact is that, I never really thought about what it means if you have money. Because if you have money, you can just meet a professor and get a dossier and understand every fact. For instance, you could, delegate the research to a researcher who would be extremely qualified. These things, as a documentary filmmaker, you used to do everything alone. It has its advantages, but of course, you cannot have that big output, which I would have liked to have, because in a time of crisis, there are a lot of stories to tell. I had always this childish dream of living in Germany when the Nazi times start, and I could do a documentary and film what happens. And then you're there. You could, in fact, make a documentary, could film it all, but you just have to pay your living and the living of your team. And that's then the problem, because the Nazis wouldn't found a documentary I would make about them, So, and here we have, of course, not the same situation, but you have a similar disruptive situation, and you have a similar anti-democratic situation, which is touching every field of life in our societies.
But how dangerous? I mean, we're sort of, we're hopefully not getting obsessed or a bit overindulgent, but I think it's important because, we hear from everybody how important independent media is, and how honest and truthful it is. In my experience, I would probably say that's the furthest. It's so far from the truth. It's not funny, because people don't understand that. I mean, and I can tell you that I can't reveal the investors, but we don't work with them anymore. We do not work with them. It finished quite ugly. And I'm not going to mention their names, because, especially at this stage, because I wish to stay out of court. But the destruction that these people do to an organisation or to an individual is just dreadful. But I think what it does more, it shows you how little the truth is, or how little the truth is valued, or how little facts or reality are valued. And if you look around at the moment, there are those that are, I'm a trained journalist, I've got all my credentials. And that person is not. That person is up in front of the High Court. Or there are others that that profess to be, I'm one of the great truth tellers, or I'm going to save your life. Do you find that the destruction that these people who are funding people who need money because they need to eat, do you find that the destruction of a reliable source of information disturbing? And how do we get around that? Because, and I'm being very careful here, I'm dancing on coals, because there aren't that many out there at the moment in independent media who haven't got there's like an octopus around their gonads at the moment, and that's telling them that you need to say what I need you to say or follow this particular agenda. And there's some very, very, very big networks in the US, independent networks in the US, they're caught hook, line and sinker, and yet they profess to be the truth. They profess to be the whole truth and nothing but it, and they're not. How damaging do you think it is? Because forget about the creative people. That, you know, it's the audience, that loyal audience who believe what that particular person's saying. And a lot of times out of 10, it's just all bullshit, isn't it?
You know, we live in war times, and in war times, information is crucial. There's a famous saying of a general in Prussia, you know, the country that has been here before Germany. And he said, look, each of the soldiers could just kill me. They're stronger than I am. And there are hundreds and thousands of them. And they just do what I say. And if I say to them, you have to kill the other soldiers, or you have to get killed, they would do it. Why would they do it? I mean, it's not logical. It is because there is a pattern in their head, there's something they think, there's a social structure which makes this happen. And this social structure, of course, is not free. It is a very tight system. If you are a soldier, you're living in a very tight system, but not just as a soldier, but also if you are a regular citizen in war times. And this is what we are at. Freedom of thinking, freedom of saying is extremely dangerous to political projects which harm the general societies and the general population. And often we have a tendency to think in two dimensions. We think, oh, you know, there's the NATO, there are the BRICS states, there's Russia, and there's the United States, and in fact, there's another level which is, I would even argue, more important. There's a level of war from from people who use these generals to manipulate the minds of the people. And I just have to emphasize what Julian Assange said is the most important leak he ever had. It's the unconventional handbook of warfare, the unconventional manual of warfare, where in 2009, the US Army shows how they proceed if they want to attack another country. They go through all levels of society. It can be legal, it can be political, it can be an environment movement, it could be anything, really anything. It could be like the milk products or the media, of course. So just to say, independent media, alternative media, of course, is a battlefield. And you will have players, either players with a lot of money or players with a lot of political importance, who will try to have power over these people, especially if they have an audience. So if you have Alex Jones or whatever, people who have a big audience in alternative media, there is, of course, they're part of this battle somehow. And so I think, somehow targeted. I don't know how it was for you, but for me, I felt that this was professional. It was, this I told you, it made me dream. It was, in fact, a strategy of seduction, and then you say, okay, you can do things, we can become bigger, I can employ people, we have a higher team. He said, look, you should buy equipment for your studios. I said, it's true, it's true, we don't have really professional equipment. So he gave me a loan with no interest. That's amazing, isn't it? So I said, look, it doesn't seem there's so many strings attached to this contract. We took months to choose the equipment, to install it, and when it all was ready, he said, the same guy who gave me this money for the documentary series, said, look, I want to have shares of your company, 50%, and I would just use this loan and the production fund I gave you and you would just integrate it as a share of a company. And initially I said, look, I don't know, I have to think about it. And then I thought about it and said, that's a bit weird. And he, at that very moment, interrupted all communication, which I thought was also weird. And I said I wouldn't do it. And at that time, he wanted to have back this loan, and which in fact was a sabotage in what we did, because we lost months of work. And it was a lot of hassle. And just to give you one example, what I learned is whatever the contract is, whatever the work relationship is, even if you don't give shares away, even in that context, if you have any business relationship, you are in fact more fragile. You are more dependent to that person, because he could always say, look, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right, or at least use these experiences for defamation, which is important for us as media makers. Our reputation is core to what we do, isn't it?
Mm. It's we haven't got enough time to keep going into all this, but I would like to invite you back again in the next couple of next week or so, if not earlier, because I think it's just very serious, and this is not being too close to it, but we call ourselves the media. Legacy media, we basically know who funds them. And so therefore we take it with a grain of salt or a bucket of something. But when it comes to independent media, there are squillions and squillions out there who want to be told the truth. And if someone keeps professing to tell the truth, you have to ask, where are they getting their money to enjoy a comfortable lifestyle? And with that money, do you have editorial control, or are there strings attached? So I'd like to invite you back again very shortly just to continue that. Robert, just quickly, what do you have on the go at the moment? Tell me, just so somebody can go and start to look at your quality.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. It's so I'm producing a documentary series about what we live in a way. But interestingly, I learned that I need to understand the history to see where we are at today. I think the more we forget what happened last year, what happened 50 years ago or 100 years ago, the harder it is for us to judge what is happening right now. And we do, in fact, a documentary series about the financial aspects to a world war. And we create the links between the First World War and what we live today. You know, I think it's one big story, and it's important to grasp where we are at.
Robert Cibis, if somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that?
Just please go on our website. This is the only place which isn't censored. It's www.oval.media.
Robert Cibis, a good friend of ours, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
We shall chat later on. Coming up next, we'll talk, the Australian government has already stopped a second person coming into Australia. Very interesting indeed, and we'll find out more about that just after this break. This is The World Today.
Makers are facing more travel.
When we're on the go, it's easy to go into our own world. Keep your mind on the road.
Our beautiful world is changing, withering, dying by the hands of those who don't value nature, even though we all depend on it for life itself. But there is hope. Together with caring friends, the Nature Conservancy can restore our lands, heal our waters, and save our wildlife with big solutions only nature can provide. But every day we lose more of the places we love, and we urgently need to save endangered lands, waters, and wild species. The actions we take today will determine the tomorrow we leave to our children and grandchildren. The water they drink, the air they breathe, the beauty they experience. To learn more about how you can help protect and conserve our beautiful world, visit nature.org today.
Asthma is a growing problem, especially among children. Asthma affects the quality of life for millions like me every single day. My name is Chris Draft, and I have asthma. And I've spent more than a decade in the NFL tackling asthma on and off the field. Join me in the EPA in helping people control their asthma. Asthma is a lung condition that can be controlled through medication and by avoiding things that can make it worse. 3 steps are the solution to controlling asthma. Step 1, talk to a doctor. Step 2, make a plan. And step 3, get rid of things that can make it worse. Asthma can be tackled. For more information on asthma, log on to epa.gov/asthma.
We're today's News Talk, the world today.
Shane Shabul is a committee member of the Australian Jewish Association. The Australian Jewish Association, the AJA, was created to fill a void, provide a strong, principled voice for the Jewish community in Australia. The passing of legislation in response to the Bondi attack has disappointed many due to its possible censorship and the power it gives to banning groups that governments do not like. And this is what our next story is about. Whatever happened to freedom of speech? Make up your own mind. Last night we heard that the government has cancelled at the last minute the visit of Sammy Yahood. Now, Sammy now joins a growing list of Jewish visitors whose visas have been revoked by Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke, including former Israeli Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked and American technology entrepreneur Hillel Fuld and Knesset member Shmishma Rothman. We speak now to Shane about this recent act of the Albanese government and what lies beyond this. First of all, Shane, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Mike. Thanks for having me.
I just want to play you this clip, if you don't mind. It's a clip of Sammy Yahood, and I just, whether I agree with him or not, first of all, he's not talking about blowing up the world, although he is very volatile, but there's nothing wrong with, in my opinion, my humble opinion, someone having a right to say something, whether you're Irish, whether you're from a Muslim country, whether you're from Israel, or whether you're from Uranus, which our government seems to be from at the moment. I'll play this clip, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss whether Sammy deserved to be even blacklisted from visiting Australia.
I've got a few hours until the flight I'm supposed to be getting on from here, Abu Dhabi, on the way to Melbourne, Australia, and I'm willing to get on this flight. I'm willing to spend another 20 hours sat on a plane just to get turned around and detained, just because I will not back down. On the morning of my flight, the Australian government cancels my visa, claiming that I'm going to be doing business operations on a tourist visa, when really Tony Burke, Member of Parliament over there, has said that hate is not a reason to come to Australia. So which one is it? Is it business operations or hatred? The Australian government seem to be using a pretty legitimate law to ban me for a pretty illegitimate reason. Talking about a bad ideology like Islam is not hatred. I could quote Islam and their Prophet Muhammad if you want me to back up my claims. Stating that a Muslim is this or that is hatred, because Muslims are people, and I'm not hateful of people. I just don't like bad ideas. So I refuse to back down in the face of your weakness, in the face of your fake virtues of tolerance and acceptance and protecting people from online hatred. You are a tyrant, and I will not be deterred. We need moral clarity more than ever. It's time for peace through strength. It's time for courage in defense of our morals. And I think I've got a few hours until the flight I'm supposed to be getting on from here, Abu Dhabi, on the way to Melbourne, Australia, and I'm willing to get on this flight. I'm willing to spend another 20 hours sat on a plane just to get turned around and detained, just because I will not back down to this tyranny. I will not back down to being told no. It will take a lot more to scare Sammy Yahood.
Well, there you are. And as I said, I don't really care if he's not going to come out and do some bad things. I think he deserves to be heard. What's your views? I mean, by the way, we look at the Adelaide writers. The whole thing went pear-shaped, again because under the guidance or auspice of Melancholis, what his name is, I got his name wrong, the premier there, he didn't want her, this Palestinian writer and advocate for Palestinian rights, he didn't want her to have any say, and didn't want her to be at the festival. Now we have the federal government, and they do lean somewhat towards I'd say Islam, I'd say Muslims, the Muslim countries such as Palestinians. Nothing wrong with that, but I think everybody deserves a right to be heard unless they are, and by the way, hate speech is subjective to the person deciding that you are committing hate speech. What's your views on Sammy not being allowed to visit Australia at the last minute?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was actually just watching what you showed, I did see that online. He was detained. Well, he was denied boarding in Abu Dhabi to fly to Melbourne, but he was literally at the check-in desk at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel when he received the visa cancellation. So he was at that point not sure what to do. But when I actually watched what you just showed, it just reminds me of the late Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin at the time, when he said to Joe Biden, and we're talking decades ago, when he reminded him that we're not Jews with trembling knees today, like we were 80 years ago. And it's rather poignant on today when we actually commemorate Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is today's 81 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. So to me, that's how I sort of viewed that. And what I take from this cancellation is yet again Tony Burke using the powers that he's got to, in the very last minute, cancel the visa of an Israeli who is about to board a plane to Australia to come and speak, and he's doing it last minute. So there's no time to appeal it. Now, Sammy Yahood, he's a British influencer who now lives in Israel. He was due to come here to run self-defense workshops, a self-defense workshop for the Australian Jewish Association, and also launch his Peace Through Strength campaign, which is all about empowering Jewish communities and allies to stand up for themselves, to respond back to the hate. And we've seen so much hate since the October 7 atrocities. We've seen on October 8, we've seen imams standing in front of crowds and actually preaching hate speech. There's an imam in Sydney, Wissam Haddad. He has called Jews, and I'll quote here, vile people, treacherous people, monsters, criminals, bloodthirsty, and he's made claims about Jews controlling media, finance, and institutions. Now, if only Jews could control the media, we wouldn't be seeing the hate speech that we've seen spread around the media, particularly from our own ABC here in Australia. But he's also preached, "O Muslim, O believer, there's a Yehudi behind me. Come and kill him." So they're the sorts of examples that we're seeing that actually go unpunished in Australia. We've also he's an Australian citizen, but we've also got We've got a radical Islamist. He's Palestinian. His name is Mohammed Sharab. He's not a citizen. He has been out there since October 7, absolutely spewing hatred on the streets. He openly declares he is Hamas. I'm going to read some of his quotes. He states and aligns himself with the global Islamist extremist movement to destroy Israel. He advocates against peace, saying, "F your peace, we demand revolution." He's out there with all the chants from the river to the sea, globalize the Intifada, and he himself is up on kidnapping charges, and is still going through the court. So if we're going to keep those kind of people here in Australia, why are we denying someone who's actually coming out to actually give a series of lectures to empower young Jewish communities to stand up for themselves? But the other thing I'd like to point out is, if Tony Burke actually attended a Jewish event, he would actually see that no hatred is actually chanted. They're actually quite uplifting. He denied a visa to tech entrepreneur Hillel Fuld last year because for various reasons, under the same reasons that he's coming here to spread hatred. But I've actually heard Hillel speak, and he spoke at a charity launch through Zoom, and it was anything but hatred. It was actually about Israeli entrepreneurship and innovation. So if Tony Burke would actually come to an event and see for himself, he would actually see that those events are not full of hate. But I think it comes back to ideology and protecting his voter base, which is 25% Muslim in his electorate. So we have these laws. These laws existed before the new laws were implemented. But when I contacted my local MP with my concerns, he said the laws are there, but it is subject to the courts. So it's subject to their interpretation. So if you get a left-leaning judge, these laws mean nothing.
Yeah, by the way, the author in Adelaide was Randa Abdul Fattah.
Yes.
Can you tell me, and by the way, it's very subjective, this hate speech, isn't it? I mean, it's, like, for example, Tony Burke,
yeah,
he is inclined to be on one side of the coin. I think this is where this hate speech walks into all sorts of big knives that will chop you up in little bits, because it is subjective to that particular person handing out that ruling. And I don't think free speech, and you would agree with this, free speech is free speech. It's not what you want to hear. So if you say we as Australians have free speech, it is meant that everybody has a right to say something, providing it isn't of a really threatening nature of stuff. But if it's hurty words, yeah, so what? We get over it. What do you think the federal government, who are they targeting?
It's interesting because these new laws were meant to start by protecting the Jewish community against the hate and that we've been seeing on our streets and where they led to. And then eventually this would expand out to other minorities. So, but again, it comes back to if you hurt my feelings, suddenly that's not freedom of speech. Now, if you tell me, if you come and say I don't like you for whatever reason, so be it. But if I start saying globalize the intifada and let's go and kill you, well, that's a different story, and that shouldn't be tolerated. And we also know, even from history, where that kind of rhetoric leads to. If it becomes normalized and part of day-to-day, let's say, society, then we know where eventually that can lead, because the bar keeps moving. And Tony Burke himself said just a few weeks ago that these hate preachers and hate groups have actually been operating just below the legal thresholds. So if you can see that the rhetoric is at the level that it is, you should actually be adjusting the laws to suit the current environment. But again, it didn't suit their ideology and it didn't suit their voter base. And hence why they didn't do anything about it until 15 innocent lives were taken on Bondi Beach in December.
Tell me, do you think there's an overemphasis at the moment? People are a little bit, it's like when you release a brand new car or something, everyone looks at it. So this new legislation on hate speech, we have to make sure we uphold what Australians want. By the way, Australians don't want it. But anyway, who cares? The politicians, they're going to rule supreme. They're the elitist. But in doing what they think is the right thing, and I noticed, some of the I noticed a whole bunch of hypocrites. That's what I was about to say. But they all want to do the right thing, stamp out hate speech. It's sort of on steroids at the moment. I mean, where's common sense? Where's in Australia? Australia's had a great, whether you're a Catholic, Buddhist, Muslim, Jewish, Martian, I mean, we all had a lot of tolerance. And if you just look at the old TV shows and stuff, you could throw an egg at someone and they go, "Oh yeah, want a beer?" And that's it. So our society is one part. Society's way of trying to protect all those from this hate speech is, I find, first of all, very hypocritical. But it's not real, is it?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, we spoke about this last time. When we look about how we grew up, we grew up playing with the kids from different ethnicities in our street. We'd go to their houses, and it didn't matter who or what you are. And to a large extent, depending on what part of society you live in, it still doesn't. It's a certain ideology. I suppose it comes back to critical race theory, doesn't it? If I'm talking to you as I am right now, I don't care what your skin color is, whether you're tall, whether you're short, whether you're male or female, old or young. I could keep going on. But they seem to identify everyone into a category, and it comes back to an oppressor or the oppressed. And so if you fall under the oppressed, then you can yell until the rafters come home. And I think that's where we've gotten to, which is a real shame. But then, at the same time, what we've seen here in Australia since October 7 is totally unprecedented. And I think once you allow that kind of rhetoric and that normalization of hate to take hold, as we've seen, it gets out of control. And it doesn't seem to be temporary. The war has been over for a few months in Gaza, yet every week they're out there protesting this, protesting that. And people like, the imams that I've mentioned, and even, what Randa Abdel Fattah supports is the continuation of this until the state of Israel is destroyed. Now, the state of Israel isn't going anywhere, and it goes from strength to strength. And so what are we going to do? We're going to live like this forever, where our streets are taken over by this kind of hate speech. And then we get to Australia Day, and these same people hate the values in which we all enjoy here.
Yep. Excuse me. Barnaby Joyce said we have to vet our immigrants because there are many that are coming out here that spit on this country. And I thought that's a pretty good, and that's one reason why One Nation is rocketing ahead in the polls.
Correct.
And it's making the Conservatives, the Liberals, and even the Nationals, but the Liberals especially, highly irrelevant. And who thought we would have gone along the same path as what's happened to the Tories in the UK? Although we do notice that the Tories are now joining Reform UK. And the question is, do we have a whole bunch of Nationals or the Conservatives joining One Nation? Wouldn't that be something? Fish and chips. I mean, could you imagine every Friday be fish and chips? Pauline has her way. Sorry. Now, if somebody wants to find out more about your organisation, and I think you are, as we would say in Australia, a good bunch of eggs, and I appreciate your time. How do they find out more about the Australian Jewish Association?
Yep. Look us up online, the Australian Jewish Association. You'll find the link there. You can actually, the Australian Jewish Association is growing in numbers as well and support there, and we've got a huge online presence. I think we're the largest of all the Jewish organisations. We're a centre-right group based on traditional Judean values. So have a look at our website and become a member if you want to.
Fantastic. And I've been to a few of the Jewish. My wife used to work for a whole bunch of clothing companies, and
oh yes,
the word party has been reinvented by you guys. But that's
we do have some very interesting guests that come on a weekly basis as well, and you can look us up and like us on the social media. There's constant posts on what's going on, particularly today about Sammy Yahood.
Yep. Very interesting. I think the federal government, I mean, I don't know if I want one nation to be running the country. I don't think they will, but I think they'll have a major say. But I mean, could you imagine Prime Minister Pauline Hanson?
Well, you know, the please explain will come out a lot. But you know what? She's stood for the same values for the last 30 years about protecting Australia and having people who want to be here.
She loves the country.
She does, as do we, exactly.
She calls a spade a shovel. Great chatting with you. We'll do this again, Shane. Thank you so much for your time. This is the end of our 3-hour stint every day now, Monday to Friday. From 4 till 7, it will increase bit by bit. Probably next week it might go for an extra 2 hours. We'll see about that bit. Thank you very much for your company. Have a great night. This is The World Today.